Clearly, it's a very challenging time in business and in the economy. I think no matter what sector you've worked in the last few years, there's been difficulty, there's been some uncertainty associated with it, and I think we're in the midst of what we'd say is a fragile recovery. But my view is the short-term outlook is still a difficult one. I don't think we have yet come through all the events that started back in 2008. And, I think we're going to have to figure out how to respond faster and more effectively to events like that in the future. But I'm optimistic about the future. I mean, I think there's good news around technology, new ways of delivering health care that can make a dramatic difference in health outcomes in our industry. So it's an exciting time. And as I said, I'm optimistic. I think one of the most dramatic trends probably that's impacting health care in our industry is the dramatic growth in the population, which, as you know, over the last 50 years has doubled to nearly 7 billion people and is expected to grow to over 9 billion people in the next 30 or so years. So globalization is taking place. It's making people richer, and that wealth goes hand in hand with improved health. And I think just as significant as the growth in the raw numbers is just the amount of wealth that's being created. If you go back 20 years ago in Asia, roughly a fifth of the population was considered to be middle class. Now it's estimated at over 55%. At the same time that's happening, global companies like ours, I think, are coming under more scrutiny than ever from customers, from shareholders, from the public, and there's an expectation that we need to deliver better than we've ever delivered before. Edelman is a PR company. We use them. They have an annual survey they do on trust, and last year their survey found that more than 50% of people said that they trusted business to do the right thing, and that we lacked transparency and honesty in the way we did things. And that was what people are using to judge a company's reputation. And if you just go back 4 years in the same survey, people said that the most important factor was quality and services, and that global companies really need to deal with the fact that those perceptions have changed, and we need to listen differently. I think we need to be more transparent, and we need to act differently. I think one of the success factors in our business at AstraZeneca is the way we try to empower our local businesses, our local units, to respond to local conditions and make decisions at that level to adapt their business strategies to the needs of the country as they interpret it and understand it. So there's an element of localization in the global world. There is a fundamental exception, I think, which is around the way that we conduct our business. We have a universal standard from a code of conduct compliance perspective, and whether somebody's in Brazil or Britain or China in the U.S., we strive to make sure that we can be an industry leader in ethical business practices. And I would say to you, it's not an easy task, and it relates to the decisions people make about how we conduct business in each of those markets that I talked about. So it's something that we're spending more time on to help people in our organization understand how decisions that they make can impact the overall company, the reputation, the perception of us. And I think, our business is a long-term business. We have a 10 to 15-year period to get products through the development cycle. We spend a couple of $2 billion to do it. So while there is short-term turbulence, my view of the decisions that I need to be involved in and to get connected with have to do with the longer-term aspect of our business. My focus is really on taking actions today and in the business today that'll create a pipeline of innovation that will deliver 10 to 20 years from now. When you get the secret decoder ring for the CEO of the pharmaceutical company, when you break the code, it says make sure you picked your predecessor well, because you'll be living with a lot of decisions that person made in the future. I've been in the industry for over 35 years, and I took over as CEO of AstraZeneca at the beginning of 2006, and I knew at that point that I had to bring about some significant changes within the organization. I needed to change what were preconceived notions of just about everything that we did, how and where we did business, where we invested, where we accessed the best science. And so we've been going through a journey for the last few years. And I would say to you, I did this, with a strong team around me, some of whom have been with the company for a long time, some of whom were very new, are new to the company. I went outside and brought in a couple of new people to help change some things. And I think when we looked at our strategy, we realized that we wanted to reaffirm our focus as an innovation-based, integrated global biopharmaceutical company, and that's what we're focused on today. So as you can imagine, that just takes strong leadership, not just from me, but at all levels of the company to be able to successfully steer change through an organization on this kind of a scale. We're in the midst of a restructuring program over 7 years that will restructure 22,000 jobs on a denominator of 66,000. So it's an enormous change within the company. And my role in that, I think, is multidimensional. And decision-taking is part of it, but I'm not sure it's the largest part of the role per se, and we can talk about that during the Q&A. I think it's important that the CEO provides leadership and context for the direction and purpose of the company. I think you've got to have a team around you that you trust to make the decisions that they need to make to drive the business forward, and I have to be available for counsel. I don't believe in making a decision-making bureaucracy or a bottleneck about how things get done. I think, I've tried hard to delegate decisions to the people in our organization who are the appropriate ones to make those decisions. And I would just say to you, the CEO has to be very careful when to weigh in on decisions, because it's easy to create a gravitational pull to have everything come up the organization because, as you all know, I'm sure, people feel indemnified if someone above them makes a decision that they then need to go implement. They don't feel like they own it. And I think that kind of gravitation just slows an organization down. It does create the bureaucracy I mentioned a minute ago. So as you talk about whether decisions are made on gut feel or data, I agree with what was said a few minutes ago. I think it's a combination of both. It's a highly complex and interconnected world. There's lots and lots of data, more than I could have ever imagined I would have access to. It certainly wasn't part of my educational training on how to handle it all. But I think the more familiar you are with the subject, the clearer the areas where you need more data become as you think about decisions that you have to make. I think equally it's very important I have to understand the views of stakeholders, and these need to be factored into decisions we make for the obvious reasons. So, and I would just comment, there's also a danger that in less familiar areas, too much data can be presented and it tends to hamper decisions. And I find striking a balance between enough data, trust in my judgment based on my experience or instincts or gut, are the things I use to make a decision. And as in most things in life, I think it's a balance. And I think you have to look at it that way. And just as importantly, and most importantly, I think you have to stand by the decisions that you take. So